Good morning and welcome to Mark's Head. Okay, so I get to work a little bit early one day, and I'm hanging out in the break room to get a little chill time in before I have to start work. And this new coworker walks in, a blonde lady. The fact that she's blonde really has nothing to do with this, but to be perfectly honest, I have no idea what her name is, even though she wears a name tag. I've never bothered to look at it, so she's just blonde lady to me. And I don't call her that. That's just what I know her as. So anyway, she comes in, and I say good morning just to be polite, and she screams, "Good morning!" And I'm just silent. So she screams, "Good morning!" And again, I'm silent. So that's not working. So she goes with, "How are you?" She screams, and I'm just like, "Okay." And she says, "What's new?" Again, screaming, and I'm like, "Nothing." So then she tries, "How's every little thing?" She's still shouting, and I'm like, "Sorry, you have to excuse me, nothing personal, but I'm just not a big talker." Oh, sure, I could have said that watching my wife die screwed me up a little bit, but that would be a second unpleasant conversation. I'm still trying to get out of the first one. So she doesn't take the hint, and she screams, "Why?" And I'm just like, "Because." And she goes, "But why?" Again, shouting. And finally, I can't stand it anymore, and I just shout back at her. I said, "Just because." That finally slows her down a little bit. And she says, "Oh, one of my sons is like that." So then I say, "Well, you should probably understand that." Now, that was when she got her first glimpse inside of Mark's head. But it wasn't over yet. In fact, that was the easy part. This conversation about not wanting to talk to people took place maybe a month ago. Flash forward to a few days ago, maybe yesterday, and I'm on a break, and I'm drinking an orange Gatorade Zero. Blonde lady's there. I'm really starting to feel bad about not knowing her name, but I just have no idea what her name is. So blonde lady asked me if I like orange, and I say yes. And then she asked me if I like any other flavors, and I'm like, yeah, as I'm looking at the clock and figuring out how much time I have left on my little break. So rather than just telling her, well, it's because I saw the orange Gatorade Zero Sugar, I thought I'd go into a detailed explanation of why it is that I chose orange. And it's a good one, too. So years and years ago, and I'm telling her this story, years ago, decades ago, I had this girlfriend for a very short period of time who, as it turns out, was a chronic, well, insert a bad word that rhymes with witch here, okay? Yeah, she turned out to be a chronic one of those, and she was also racist and also liked to fool around on her husband. So she left her husband, or more likely, he left her. And I was living in California at the time, and she was living in Illinois. And she was actually verifiably single at this point when she was my girlfriend. And she talked me into coming out to go see her for a week. So I did. I spent a week on vacation, and we had a nice time for that week. And I went home, and we continued to get to know each other and to talk to each other a lot on the telephone, which was very nice. Again, remember that I'm telling all of this to Blonde Lady, and she has no idea what this has to do with Orange Gatorade. But sadly for her, she's about to find out. You see, I recounted a strange telephone conversation that I had with the girlfriend, and she started talking about she'd had a bad headache, and she had this symptom and that symptom, and she had trouble keeping her balance, and all of this stuff. It sounded like pretty serious stuff, right? So she tells me that finally she went to see the doctor. She went to the doctor to see what happened, what was wrong with her. And she got checked out by the doctor, and the doctor said that she'd had a very small stroke, which is a pretty serious thing, you know? So I talked to her about it, and, I was concerned, and I was worried about her, and I said all the right things, and I expressed my sympathy and my concern, and I wanted to make sure that she was okay, and that she got whatever kind of treatment she needs, and that's all well and good, except right at the very end of the conversation, she tells me that she made the whole story up. She made up the whole thing, all the symptoms, the headache, the doctor visit, the small stroke, all just made up for no other reason than to see how I would react. Yeah, this is the awesome kind of person that this girl was. The same kind of girl who would go out at night partying when, as I found out, her husband was still at work. And she would purposely go out without wearing a ring, and she'd meet up with friends and people and flirt and drink and all of the stuff that married people really aren't supposed to do. So that's how awesome this girl was, and I was well rid of her shortly thereafter. Now, keep in mind that I'm relating all this to Blonde Lady, who's still listening, only now she's starting to look at the clock, and she's seeing her own break slip away, which is kind of funny. So I told her, I said that the point of this, what this has to do with Orange Gatorade, was that this awful girlfriend had this strange, weird, pathological, no kidding, hatred for the color and the flavor of orange. She just couldn't stand anything orange. She just hated it. And so from that moment on, if I have a choice of drinks and everything else is equal, I go for the orange each and every time. The blonde lady now looks at me with a slightly dazed look in her eyes, maybe wishing that she never got into the conversation in the first place, but she's still there. Her hand is on the handle of the door to get out of the break room, but she's not leaving yet. She's still hanging in there. The cool part is that it's not over yet. The fun isn't over yet. There's a little bit of meat left to it. See, I told her, I said that I like to think that every time I choose orange, do you know how sometimes you get just like a momentary headache, like you get like a quick, horrible stabbing pain in your head and it's terrible and then it's gone, right? You ever get one of those? I do. I asked her this and she nods her head, so she knew what I was talking about. And I said that I like to think that every time I pick out an orange string, and seriously, honestly, at this point, I'm actually making this up. I'm not a cruel person. Occasionally weird when I like to tell stories. But I said that I like to think that every time I pick out an orange string, this truly horrible ex-girlfriend gets that instantaneous little stabbing pain in her head. Just for an instant, has no idea why. So blonde lady, and I'm sure she's a very nice person, and I guess it doesn't sound very nice me just calling her blonde lady, but again, I have no idea what her name is, despite the fact that I'm sure she wears a name tag. I just haven't looked at it. She finally walks away looking very much like she wishes she hadn't started the conversation. So she's had her first good, solid visit inside of Mark's head, and she probably won't be coming back anytime soon. But I'll tell you what, I hope you do decide to come back. It's not always quite like this. It's not always funny. It's not always serious, but it's always interesting. Hopefully it's interesting. Subscribe and like and let me know that you like it, and I will see you next time. Bye.